to attain the proper flight path, while minimizing the dynamic pressure it experiences during flight. Vulcan then reaches Mach 1, the speed of sound. With the ability to add 2, 4, or 6 solid rocket boosters, or SRBs, Vulcan can be precisely configured to take any mission to space, from low Earth orbit to Pluto and beyond. These boosters augment the rocket's total thrust at liftoff, adding approximately 460,000 pounds of thrust per SRB. With their propellant expired approximately 90 seconds into ascent, the SRBs burn out, followed by jettison. Jettison time is variable, occurring between 100 and 150 seconds after liftoff, depending on mission requirements. Vulcan's guidance system then activates to steer towards the precise target in space. First stage flight continues as the rocket crosses the Kármán line, entering space. With the majority of propellant expended as Vulcan fights against the force of gravity, the BE-4 engines shut down, and the booster stage separates. With the rocket now weighing less than 10% of what it did at liftoff, dual RL-10C engines on ULA's Centaur upper stage ignite. Spacecraft are encapsulated inside a 5.4-meter diameter payload fairing, which provides a protective environment during ascent. Following Centaur engine ignition, the payload fairing is jettisoned. With the first burn complete, the Centaur engine shuts down for a coast phase. Centaur flies a short, medium, or long coast, which is determined by launch day. Further into flight, Centaur ignites for a second burn, powering the vehicle into a translunar injection orbit. Following the second main engine cutoff, ULA Centaur places Astrobotic's Peregrine lunar lander into a highly elliptical orbit, more than 220,000 miles above Earth, where it will intercept the Moon. Following delivery of the Peregrine spacecraft, Centaur comes alive for a third and final burn to reach a heliocentric orbit around the Sun. Centaur completes the CERT-1 mission by carrying Celestis' Memorial spaceflight payload into deep space. Known as the Enterprise flight, this mission includes 234 flight capsules containing cremated remains, DNA samples, and messages of greetings from clients worldwide on an endless journey in interplanetary space beyond the Earth-Moon system to orbit the Sun forever.
(249) STS internal. (238) (230)
CLO2 PLC started.
(159)
Vehicle internal.
T-minus 2
155.
minutes. The launch vehicle, payload, ground systems, and eastern range are go for launch. For those of you just joining, I'm Amanda Sterling, and I'm your host for today's live coverage of the inaugural Vulcan rocket launch. The team is not working any issues, and we're on track for an on-time liftoff at 2:18:38 a.m. Eastern Time.
Allez, c'est parti pour le décollage de la fusée ULA. Direction l'orbite lunaire dans 1 minute et 20 secondes. Merci, merci Claudius. Salut Guillaume. Alors ce nouveau atterrisseur lunaire hein, sera normalement prévu pour un alunissage au mois de février. On y reviendra d'ici là. Allez, 30 secondes avant le décollage, écoutez, bonne rentrée à tous ceux qui ont des enfants. Et puis, écoutez, profitez bien. On est à 20 secondes. Allez, c'est parti, 15 secondes. On va augmenter un petit peu le son et on se retrouve tout de suite après. C'est parti.
Minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. We have ignition.
Allez, c'est parti pour le décollage de la fusée Vulcain.
First United Launch Alliance Vulcan rocket, launching a new era in spaceflight to the moon and beyond.
Allez, on est en absence par contre de télémétrie, donc on va faire comme d'habitude, on va faire ça à l'œil. Donc en attendant qu'on ait tout ça, on va relire un petit coup tout ça. Donc dans le cadre de la mission commerciale Peregrine, les États-Unis lancent ce lundi 8 janvier leur première mission vise à se poser sur la Lune depuis le programme Apollo il y a plus de 50 ans. Donc la fusée à son bord, un atterrisseur de la start-up américaine Astrobotic, des instruments scientifiques de la NASA, un petit morceau du mont Everest ou encore les portions symboliques d'ADN ou des restes incinérés de 69 personnes, dont celle de Gene Roddenberry, le créateur de Star Trek. Voilà, une mission plutôt symbolique, hormis bien sûr les instruments scientifiques. Alors, tout est en description, hein, si vous voulez plus de détails en ce qui concerne ce nouveau lancement. On devrait bientôt, on a franchi la zone de Max Q, hein, on devrait bientôt arriver à la séparation du premier étage. La forme, ouais. Elle est la fusée d'appoint qui vient d'être larguée, donc c'est une aide hein, au lancement, cette petite fusée. En tout cas, elle vient juste d'être larguée. Allez, ça change un petit peu, hein, on avait l'habitude, enfin on était surtout dans l'attente du programme Artemis, dont la première femme devrait arriver sur la Lune d'ici quelques années. Là, bon, bien sûr, une mission non habitée, mais par contre, une mission quand même intéressante. Hein, comme on le disait, depuis plus de 60 ans, on arrête de faire des missions lunaires. Donc, ça va relancer un petit peu. On a vu sur les réseaux sociaux la course à l'espace entre l'URSS et les États-Unis. Tranquille, écoute. Bah, tant mieux alors. Oui, c'est ça, exactement, Guillaume. En tout cas, vous avez tous les détails en description, comme par exemple les détails de la fusée qui fait approximativement 62 mètres de hauteur. Alors, de là à dire que c'est une mission symbolique, oui et non, hein, on est plus que dans la mission symbolique, hein, il y a quand même des recherches scientifiques, c'est quand même une start-up qui lance, donc si la mission réussit, forcément la start-up va se développer, hein, c'est un programme, ça ne sera pas le seul lancement, il y en aura d'autres qui suivront. Et comme je vous ai dit, normalement, on devrait avoir un alunissage d'ici le mois de février. Alors, c'est long, surtout qu'il faut que 4 jours, hein, normalement, pour être sur la Lune. Mais on y reviendra, bien sûr, dans les prochains jours. En tout cas, vous n'allez pas la rater. Hein, vous avez le temps pour tout ça. Allez, il reste approximativement moins de 5 minutes avant que la fusée soit en orbite terrestre. Normalement, je vais regarder, je crois que j'avais marqué la date. Une fusée qui fait 27 tonnes. Non, je n'ai pas la date, mais ça, je vous la mettrai en tout cas dans l'onglet communauté suite à tout ça. Ah, par contre, les images qui sont d'assez basse qualité, ça, on n'y peut rien, c'est la retransmission malheureusement qui est comme ça. Up next. Ah, ça y est. Bon, par contre, on voit pas grand chose. Allez, on est passé sur les images de synthèse, on va pouvoir voir schématiquement ce qui va se passer. On devrait avoir la séparation de ce... Voilà, ça y est. Du gros réservoir, c'est bon. On a quand même une vue intérieure. Et la coiffe également, qui devrait se séparer maintenant, qui va nous laisser apparaître du coup tous les instruments. Ça y est, la coiffe qui vient de se séparer. On se croirait toujours dans Kerbal Space Program. C'est ça, c'est un gars qui joue à Kerbal. Allez, on peut apercevoir le module, le petit module lunaire, le petit LEM. Bon, c'est pas un LEM, bien entendu, mais on va l'appeler comme ça aujourd'hui. Eh bien écoutez, tout s'est bien passé pour l'instant. On va écouter pour nos amis américains les commentaires.
This is amazing. How did it feel to watch the Vulcan rocket lift off for the first time?
Oh, just absolutely amazing. I didn't expect it to be the way it was. It just, my heart is still pounding. It was excellent, and just, I'm so proud of all the work that the team did to get where we are today.
Absolutely, and developing a new rocket is an enormous endeavor of which you were a huge part. Again, we're still early, but how do you imagine the whole Vulcan team is feeling right now?
I feel like they have to be the same way, you know, smile ear to ear. I know the team is at all our sites, friends and family. They've been supporting us for many years to get to where we are, so I'm sure they are jumping up and down just like me. It's been amazing.
How is the Vulcan rocket going to change the industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Vulcan is very much based on our heritage rockets, the Delta IV and Atlas V vehicles, but we've brought in a lot of new innovation and capabilities that are going to allow us to even better support our warfighters, exploration, as well as connecting the world. And the great thing about Vulcan is it's highly versatile, meaning we can use that vehicle to do anything we want, allows for affordability for anybody who needs access to space.
Absolutely. And so this is the first certification flight. What are the next steps for Vulcan after this?
Yeah, so with the first flight, we are well under the way from a certification perspective. We do have a second flight that we'll need to do here later this year. Once that completed, we'll have about 2 months or so of post-flight data testing, and then at that point we will be certified by the U.S. Space Force, and we will be ready to fly all of their important payloads for them.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll let you get back and watch the next mission
Excellent.
events.
Congratulations again.
Thanks, you too.
Coming up on 500 seconds into the mission, everything's looking good. Continuing to burn Centaur. Body rates right as expected. Steady acceleration, just under half a G. And we are now 235 miles in altitude, 836 miles downrange, traveling at 11,150 miles per hour. Continue to see nominal performance from Centaur. approaching the halfway point of this first burn of Centaur. Everything looks good. We're now 1,000 miles downrange, traveling at 11,500 miles per hour.
This is Vulcan Mission Control at T plus 10 minutes 7 seconds. Our next event, main engine cutoff, will occur in about 5 minutes. While we wait, I'm joined by Eric Monda, part of ULA's mission design team. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Amanda. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So we're still pretty early in this flight today, but can you tell us how the data is looking so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to say that it was so exciting. I ran outside so I could watch this thing lift off, and that was so cool after so many years of development to watch this thing fly. That was fantastic.
Absolutely, I bet.
Yeah.
So what is the data showing us so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had a very quick look. Obviously, we're very early in the flight still, but I've taken a look at the SRB performance as well as the booster performance so far, and everything looks just spot on, just perfect. Fortunately, we've had a lot of these systems on Atlas and Delta for a long time, and so we've had a lot of flight data to anchor our models, and everything is lining up just like we would expect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So a lot of the audience has seen us switch from this live view of the launch from our rocket cam to this animated representation of the vehicle in space. Can you talk a little bit about why we make that switch and how this visual is populated?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we first lift off, we have a feed directly from the cameras that are on the rocket back to the launch site here. And so with that, we can get the video feed that we need in order to provide those images. As we get further downrange and we go over the horizon, we no longer have that direct link. And so we rely on NASA's TDRS system to send telemetry from the vehicle back down to us on the ground. In that telemetry data, we get information like position and attitude and velocity, and so we use that to drive the animations you see here.
Okay, so we're looking at real data, what's happening, it's just a graphic of it instead of the real thing.
That's exactly right, yes.
Awesome, that's really cool. So, today right now we're in the first of 3 Centaur burns. Can you talk a little bit about why we need 3 burns and how we use those 3 burns to complete our mission today?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first burn performs our injection into low Earth orbit. Unfortunately, if we just continue that burn from that point in time, we wouldn't necessarily be aligned with where we need to be in order to get to the moon. So what we do after we get to low Earth orbit is we shut those engines down, we coast around until we get to the right spot to do that, and then we light those engines up again. When we do that and complete that burn, that will allow us to send the astrobotic Peregrine lander onto the moon. So we shut those engines down again, we are ready to do that, and then start them up one more time in order to do the third burn. And that's what's going to take Celestis's Enterprise mission out to deep space. So let's talk a little bit about where these things happen. Mm-hmm. We're going to go ahead and shut down the main engines on the Centaur when we get about halfway across the Atlantic Ocean. And then we're going to coast the rest of the way across the Atlantic Ocean, across Africa, and go ahead and start the engines up again when we get to Madagascar. And that's where we'll do the second burn. And then we coast again until we get about to Papua New Guinea. And when we get over Papua New Guinea, that's where we'll go ahead and do that third and final burn.
Okay, so you mentioned a couple of these key milestones that are ahead of us. What can everyone expect to see as far as the timeline of these mission events as they continue watching today?
Yeah, absolutely. So looking at the clock right now, looks like we've got about 2 minutes, a little over 2 minutes left here in the first burn of the upper stage. We're going to coast for about 30 minutes after that as we do that coast across the Atlantic Ocean and across Africa. The second burn will be about 4 minutes long, and then we'll have another coast for 30 minutes before we have a pretty short, like 20-second burn for the final burn. Once we've done that, then we've got some engineering demos we're going to do before we finally safe the stage and shut everything off. And then about 4 days later is when the Centaur will leave the Earth-Moon system and be off on its way to deep space.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us, and thanks for joining us today. And we'll let you get back to watching those next events.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Amanda.
Thanks.
CPU system is steadily making the correction down to a nominal MR. Two or 1 minute to MECO. Both engines firing normally.
Merci Jack. Bonne journée à toi.
This is Vulcan Mission Control at T plus 15 minutes 30 seconds. We are approaching the first main engine cutoff. Let's listen in.
Coming up on MECO 1. On to open loop control on MECO. We have cutoff. Both engines show normal shutdown signatures. We have settling established, 85% duty cycle. We are now in a 27-minute, 51-second coast duration to second burn of Centaur.
This is Vulcan Mission Control at T plus 16 minutes 20 seconds. We just heard flight commentator Rob Gannon confirm successful cutoff of the first main engine, and all systems continue to operate nominally. Our next event, Main Engine Start 2, will occur in about 27 minutes. At this time, we'll pass the broadcast back to the NASA team to continue with mission coverage through the coast phase. We'll join you back in as we approach the separation of the Peregrine spacecraft. Over to you, Megan.
Thank you, Amanda. Congratulations to you and the ULA team so far. If you're just joining us, welcome to the Space Coast of Florida, where we just witnessed the first launch of NASA's CLIPS initiative. It was a magnificent
Eh ben écoutez, une mission qui s'est passée pour le moment comme il se doit. Ça s'est très très bien passé. Donc on va regarder un petit peu tout ça en détail dans les prochains jours, mais en tout cas ça fait plaisir de voir tout ça. J'essaie de vous retrouver un petit peu des dates, des horaires. Alors. Donc premier vol le 8 janvier 2024. 57 mètres 2, c'est ça. Donc la fusée Delta 4. Ah, je l'avais, je l'ai plus. C'est pas grave ça. Quoi Alors. Allez, on est toujours sur les images de synthèse. Le son, on n'aura pas plus aujourd'hui. Je vous tiendrai au courant, en tout cas pour l'alunissage, dans l'onglet communauté, au cas où qu'il y a un direct ou quelque chose de la part de la NASA. Je pense quand même qu'il y en aura un. On en fera un également. Et en ce qui concerne les prochains lancements, je vais regarder lesquels on peut faire ensemble. Ça défile chinoise, Falcon 9. Ouais. Ah, peut-être peut-être l'AIA, la fusée japonaise. Je sais qu'on avait l'habitude de les faire. Ce serait le 11 janvier. Pourquoi pas. Ah si, il y aura la mission spatiale Axiom 3. Ouais, ça on le fera. Le 17 janvier. Ce sera sûrement le prochain qu'on fera sur la chaîne. Je vais vous le marquer. Voilà, ça c'est fait. La petite start-up à l'écran, directeur marketing. Ça va être une année hyper chargée, oui. Oui. Allez, on va rester encore quelques minutes et puis on mettra fin au live. Et puis je vous souhaiterai à tous un bon lundi, une bonne rentrée à tous. Bon courage à tous ceux qui vont braver le froid ce matin. Allez, la petite équipe d'astro-robotique. Astrobotique, pardon. Voilà, petite image. Donc, on va partir en orbite autour de la Terre. On va faire combien de révolutions, là, du coup? Bon, il nous passe une révolution, trajectoire, manœuvre, ok. On se place sur la face cachée de la Lune. Ok, non, oui, c'est ce que je pensais, on n'y va pas direct. On revient, on utilise l'orbite de la Terre. Donc on fait une ellipse. Lunaire, 33 heures, orbite 1. Ok. Et on va se rapprocher de plus en plus. Moins de 48 heures, ok. Et là on va commencer l'alunissage. Ok. Bon, au moins c'est clair. C'est clair. Et bien écoutez, sur ce, je vais vous laisser là. Je vous souhaite à tous une bonne journée. Et puis on se retrouve déjà dès vendredi pour l'interview de Kate. Il y aura d'autres vidéos qui vont sortir au cours de la semaine. Et je vous souhaite à tous une très bonne journée. Voilà. Salut.
Nous sommes go pour la mise à feu. H-.